came home exhausted from the hospital, opened the fridge, then heard something terrifying. What I discovered hiding in my own kitchen made me realize my daughter-in-law had been planning my death for months. The evidence I found would shock 3 generations of our family forever. My name is Teresa, and yesterday was one of the most draining days of my life. I spent 14 hours at Memorial Hospital in Miami, Florida, sitting by my neighbor Mrs. Rodriguez's bedside after she suffered a massive stroke. Her family lives in New York and couldn't get to Miami until this morning, so I stayed with her through the night to make sure she wasn't alone when she woke up. If she woke up, Mrs. Rodriguez and I have been neighbors for 8 years, ever since I moved into the small apartment next to hers in a quiet residential building near downtown Miami. She's been like a sister to me, especially since my son Eduardo moved me down here from Chicago to be closer to his family. We cook together, watch telenovelas together, and take care of each other when one of us gets sick. When the ambulance came for Mrs. Rodriguez yesterday morning, I immediately called Eduardo to let him know I would be at the hospital and might not be home until late. Eduardo works as a construction supervisor and his wife, Leticia, works as a dental hygienist, so they both understand the importance of being there for people who need help during medical emergencies.
Or at least, I thought they understood.
By the time I got home this evening, I was so exhausted I could barely think straight. 14 hours of hospital waiting rooms, bad coffee, and the constant beeping of medical equipment had left me drained physically and emotionally. Mrs. Rodriguez had stabilized, but she was still unconscious, and the doctors weren't sure if she would fully recover. All I wanted was to have a quiet dinner and go to bed early, so I could return to the hospital first thing in the morning. I unlocked my apartment door, dropped my purse on the small table by the entrance, and headed straight to the kitchen to see what I could find for a simple meal. But what I discovered when I opened the refrigerator changed everything I thought I knew about my family. The first thing I noticed was that my refrigerator had been completely reorganized. All of my food had been moved around, with items that I normally kept on the top shelf now sitting on the bottom shelf, and things from the vegetable drawer placed where I usually keep my milk and juice. This was strange, but not necessarily alarming. Sometimes Eduardo and Leticia come over to check on me when I'm away for long periods, and Leticia has very specific ideas about how food should be organized. She's always telling me that I'm not storing things at the proper temperatures or in the most efficient arrangement. But as I looked more closely at the contents of my refrigerator, I noticed that several items were missing entirely. A container of leftover arroz con pollo that I had made 3 days ago was gone. So was a half-gallon of milk that had been nearly full and a package of sliced turkey that I had been saving for sandwiches. Again, this wasn't necessarily suspicious. Eduardo and Leticia have keys to my apartment, and they sometimes take food home with them when they visit, especially if they think it might spoil while I'm away. I've never minded this arrangement because they also bring me groceries and cook for me regularly. But then I saw something that made my blood run cold. Sitting on the top shelf of my refrigerator, right where I would be sure to see it when I opened the door, was a small glass vial filled with clear liquid. The vial had no label, but it was sitting next to a plastic syringe still in its sterile packaging. I had never seen these items before, and I had no idea what they were doing in my refrigerator. But as I reached for the vial to examine it more closely, I heard a sound that made me freeze in terror. The sound was coming from somewhere inside my apartment. Slow, deliberate footsteps moving across the hardwood floor of my living room. Someone was in my apartment, and they were trying to move quietly so I wouldn't hear them. My first thought was that it might be Eduardo or Leticia coming to check on me after my long day at the hospital. But if it was one of them, why were they trying to be quiet? And why hadn't they called out to let me know they were here when they heard me come in? I stood completely still in my kitchen, listening carefully to try to determine where the footsteps were coming from and where they were going. The sound seemed to be moving from my living room toward the hallway that led to my bedroom and bathroom. Whoever was in my apartment was moving deeper into my private space, not toward the front door where they would go if they were planning to leave. This person was exploring my apartment, looking for something, or preparing to do something that required privacy. I quietly set the vial back in the refrigerator and tried to think about what I should do. I could call out to see if the person would identify themselves, but if this was an intruder with bad intentions, alerting them to my presence might put me in more danger. I could try to leave the apartment and call the police from outside, but to reach the front door, I would have to walk through the living room where the intruder had just been. There was a good chance they would see me and try to stop me from leaving. I could try to hide in the kitchen until the person left, but if they were planning to hurt me, hiding would only delay the inevitable confrontation. As I was trying to decide what to do, I heard something that made the situation much worse. "She should be home by now," someone said in a voice I recognized immediately. It was Leticia, my daughter-in-law, talking to someone else who was apparently with her in my apartment. Maybe she decided to stay at the hospital overnight. A second voice replied. This voice belonged to a man. But it wasn't Eduardo. I didn't recognize this voice at all. No, she always comes home to sleep in her own bed. She is very set in her routines. Leticia said. She should have been here an hour ago. Well, we can't wait much longer. Eduardo will be home from work soon, and he'll start asking questions if I'm not there. Just give me 5 more minutes to get everything ready. Once she gets home and eats the food I prepared for her, this will all be over. My heart started pounding as I realized what I was hearing. Leticia was in my apartment with a strange man, and they were planning to do something to me involving food that would be over once I ate it. The vial and syringe in my refrigerator suddenly made perfect sense. Leticia had put some kind of drug or poison in food that she expected me to eat when I got home from the hospital. What if she doesn't eat it? The man asked. She will. She always eats whatever I bring her, especially when she's tired and stressed. She trusts me completely. And you're sure this will look natural? Positive. At her age, heart attacks happen all the time. No one will be suspicious, especially since she just spent the whole day at the hospital dealing with a stressful situation. I was listening to my daughter-in-law, and a stranger planned my murder. I pressed myself against the kitchen wall, trying to stay out of sight, while continuing to listen to Leticia's conversation with the unknown man. What I heard next made me realize that this wasn't a spontaneous crime. It was something that had been planned for a long time. How long have you been planning this? The man asked. About 6 months, ever since I found out about the life insurance policy. The one Eduardo doesn't know about? Right. Teresa took out a policy years ago, naming Eduardo as the beneficiary. But she never told him about it. When she dies, he'll inherit $500,000, and he has no idea it's coming. And Eduardo still doesn't suspect anything? Nothing. He thinks I've been coming over here every day to take care of his mother out of the goodness of my heart. He has no idea I've been monitoring her health, her routines, her relationships with other people.
What about the neighbor who had the stroke? Could she be a problem?
Mrs. Rodriguez? No, she's probably going to die anyway. And even if she recovers, she doesn't know anything about our plan. I felt sick to my stomach as I realized that Leticia had been pretending to care about me for months, while actually planning my death. Every time she had brought me food, helped me with errands, or expressed concern about my health, she had been gathering information to use against me. So what's the timeline? The man asked. I put the drug in the food about an hour ago. Once she eats it, she'll start feeling chest pains within 30 minutes. I'll call 911 and tell them she's having a heart attack. She'll probably die before the ambulance gets here. But even if she makes it to the hospital, the drug will be out of her system by the time they run any tests. And you're sure there's no way to trace this back to you? No way. The drug is something that occurs naturally in the body during cardiac events. The only way to detect it is with a very specific test that they would only run if they suspected poisoning, which they won't. But Leticia had made one critical mistake in her murder plan. What about the insurance investigation? The man asked. Don't they always investigate when someone dies shortly after taking out a large policy? Teresa didn't just take out this policy. She's had it for over 10 years. I only found out about it 6 months ago, when I was helping her organize her paperwork. Eduardo doesn't know about it, because Teresa wanted it to be a surprise inheritance. So the insurance company won't be suspicious. Not at all. The policy is old enough that there's no waiting period, and Teresa is at an age where heart attacks are common. It will be a routine claim. And what about me? How do I know you won't try to cut me out once you get the money? Because you're getting $100,000 for helping me, and because I need you to help me with Eduardo afterward. What do you mean, help you with Eduardo? I mean, once Eduardo inherits the money, I'm going to convince him that we should invest it in your construction business. Then, when that business mysteriously fails, we'll split the money and Eduardo will never know what happened. So Leticia wasn't just planning to kill me. She was planning to steal my life insurance money and then defraud my son as well. Eduardo had no idea that his wife was a criminal who was using him to get access to money that belonged to our family. But I was starting to formulate a plan of my own. The mistake Leticia had made was assuming that I would come home and immediately eat the poisoned food she had prepared for me. She didn't know that I had overheard her conversation with her accomplice, and she didn't know that I now understood exactly what she was trying to do. This gave me an opportunity to turn the situation around and expose her crimes. Very quietly, I took out my cell phone and started recording audio of Leticia's conversation with the man. I needed evidence of their murder plot, because even if I managed to escape from my apartment safely, no one would believe that my sweet, caring daughter-in-law was actually trying to kill me for insurance money. "I need to get going," the man said. "Call me as soon as it's done." "I will. And remember, if anyone asks, you were never here tonight." "What about the security cameras in the building?" "I disabled the one in the hallway before we came up, and I parked 3 blocks away, so there's no record of my car being here." Leticia had thought of everything. She had planned this murder with the same attention to detail that she brought to her job as a dental hygienist. She understood that successful crimes required careful preparation and the elimination of all possible evidence. But she had underestimated my intelligence and my survival instincts. I heard the man leaving through my front door, but Leticia remained in my apartment. She was probably putting the finishing touches on her crime scene, making sure that everything looked normal so that when my body was discovered, there would be no signs of foul play. I waited until I was sure the man was gone. Then I quietly moved toward my kitchen window. My apartment is on the 2nd floor, and the window faces the alley behind the building. If I could open the window without making noise, I might be able to climb down the fire escape and get help without Leticia knowing I had escaped. But as I was moving toward the window, I accidentally bumped into a chair, making a small scraping noise against the floor. The conversation in the other room stopped immediately. "Teresa?" Leticia called out. "Is that you?" I had about 10 seconds to decide whether to continue trying to escape or to confront Leticia directly. I decided to confront Leticia, because running away would only give her time to dispose of the evidence and come up with a new plan to kill me. If I was going to stop her, I needed to do it now, while I had the element of surprise and while I had recorded evidence of her confession. "Yes, it's me," I called back, trying to sound tired and unsuspecting. "I'm just getting something to eat." "Oh, perfect timing," Leticia replied, her voice full of fake cheerfulness. "I brought you dinner. I knew you'd be exhausted after your day at the hospital." Leticia appeared in the kitchen doorway, smiling brightly and holding a covered plate that presumably contained the poisoned food she expected me to eat. "That's so thoughtful of you, Misha," I said, using the affectionate term I had always used for her. "What did you bring me?" "Arroz con pollo, just the way you like it. I made it this afternoon and brought it over so it would be ready when you got home." She set the plate on my kitchen table and removed the cover, revealing rice and chicken that looked delicious and completely normal. There was no way to tell by looking at it that the food contained a drug that would kill me within 30 minutes. "It smells wonderful," I said. "But before I eat, I wanted to ask you about something I found in my refrigerator." Leticia's smile faltered slightly. "What do you mean?" "I found a vial of clear liquid and a syringe. Do you know anything about that?" "Oh, that," Leticia said, her smile returning. "Dr. Martinez asked me to keep those for you. It's medication for your blood pressure. He wants you to start injecting it twice a day." Dr. Martinez never mentioned anything about injections when I saw him last week. He probably forgot. You know how busy doctors are. Leticia was a good liar, but she wasn't good enough to fool someone who had just heard her confessing to murder. I decided it was time to let her know that her plan had failed. "Leticia, I heard your conversation with that man." Her face went completely white. "What conversation?" "The conversation where you planned my murder. The conversation where you talked about putting drugs in my food and making it look like a heart attack. The conversation where you talked about stealing my life insurance money and then defrauding Eduardo." Leticia stared at me for a long moment, and I could see her mind racing as she tried to figure out how much I knew and what her options were. "Teresa, I think you're confused. You've been under a lot of stress today, and sometimes stress can make people imagine things that didn't really happen." "I didn't imagine anything, Leticia." I recorded the whole conversation on my phone. I held up my phone so she could see that it was still recording. "I have evidence of everything you say. including your plan to kill me tonight, and your plan to steal money from Eduardo. Leticia's fake smile completely disappeared. And for the first time, I saw her true face, cold, calculating, and utterly without conscience. "You stupid old woman," she said, her voice now filled with venom. "You should have just eaten the food and died quietly."
Why, Leticia?
"Why did you want to kill me?" "Because you're in the way. Eduardo spends too much time worrying about you, too much money taking care of you, too much energy dealing with your problems. And all the while, you're sitting on a life insurance policy that could change our lives. Eduardo loves me. I'm his mother. Eduardo is weak and sentimental. He would keep supporting you forever, even if it meant we never have enough money to buy a house or start a family of our own. So you decided to murder me for money. I decided to solve a problem that was preventing my husband and me from having the life we deserve." But Leticia wasn't done revealing the depths of her evil. "And you know what, Teresa? This isn't the first time I've done this." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean?" "I mean, you're not the first inconvenient family member I've had to deal with." "Leticia, what are you saying?" "I'm saying that my first husband's mother also had an unfortunate accident. Heart attack, very sudden, very sad. The insurance money from that policy helped me start my dental hygienist career. I realized I was talking to a serial killer who specialized in murdering elderly family members for insurance money." "How many people have you killed?" "Just 2 so far. But they were both for good reasons. Both of those old women were drains on their families, taking money and attention away from the people who really mattered." "The people who really mattered? You mean yourself?" "I mean the young people who still have their whole lives ahead of them. Old people like you have already lived your lives. You've had your chances. You've raised your children. You've made your contributions to society. Now it's time for you to get out of the way, so the next generation can prosper." Leticia had created an entire philosophy to justify her murders. In her mind, she wasn't a criminal. She was a practical person who was solving social problems by eliminating elderly people who were no longer useful. "But Eduardo will be devastated if I die. Eduardo will grieve for a few months, and then he'll realize that he's better off without the constant worry and expense of taking care of an aging parent. He'll use the insurance money to build a better life with me." "And what about Mrs. Rodriguez? Are you planning to kill her too?" "Mrs. Rodriguez is dying anyway. Her stroke was convenient timing, but it wasn't necessary. I would have found a way to deal with her if she had become a problem." That's when I realized that Leticia had been planning to kill both Mrs. Rodriguez and me. Leticia reached into her purse and pulled out a large kitchen knife. "Teresa, you've created a problem by discovering my plan. Now I'm going to have to solve that problem in a different way." "Leticia, if you kill me with a knife, it won't look like a heart attack." "No, it won't. It will look like a home invasion." An elderly woman, alone in her apartment, surprised by a burglar who panicked and killed her when she discovered him stealing her valuables. "But the police will find your fingerprints. Your DNA." "No, they won't. I've been wearing gloves since I got here, and I'll make sure clean up any evidence before I leave." "And what about the recording on my phone?" "I'll destroy your phone and say that the burglar took it." Leticia had thought through all the details of her backup plan, just as she had thought through all the details of her original murder plot. She was prepared to adapt to changing circumstances, because killing people was something she had done before. But I had one advantage that she didn't know about. Earlier in the day, when I had called Eduardo to tell him I would be at the hospital with Mrs. Rodriguez, I had also told him that I would call him when I got home safely. It was a routine we had established after a series of break-ins in our neighborhood. I always let Eduardo know when I arrived home after being out late. Eduardo would be expecting my call soon, and if I didn't call, he would come to check on me. I just had to stay alive long enough for Eduardo to arrive. "Leticia, before you kill me, can I ask you one more question?" "What? How long have you been planning to kill Eduardo too?" Leticia looked surprised. "I'm not planning to kill Eduardo." "Come on, Leticia. You just told me that you've killed 2 elderly family members for insurance money. How long before you decide that Eduardo is also an inconvenient obstacle to your happiness?" "Eduardo is my husband. I love him. You love his earning potential. But what happens when he gets older? When he can't work as much when he starts requiring medical care? Are you going to poison his food too?" "That's different." "Is it? You've already planned to steal his inheritance by convincing him to invest in your accomplice's fake's business. Once you have that money, What do you need Eduardo for? I could see that my words were making Leticia uncomfortable, because deep down she probably had already considered the possibility that Eduardo might eventually become a liability too. Eduardo is useful to me, she said. He provides stability and social legitimacy. For now, but serial killers like you don't stop killing just because they get enough money. You kill because you enjoy having power over other people's lives. I'm not a serial killer, Teresa. I'm a practical person who makes hard decisions when necessary. Tell me about your first husband, Leticia. How did he die? He died in a car accident. Before or after his mother's convenient heart attack. Before the car accident was what made me realize that life is unpredictable and that you have to take control your own destiny. Or maybe the car accident wasn't an accident at all. Maybe you killed your first husband too and then killed his mother to cover your tracks. Leticia's reaction told me I had guessed correctly. You don't know what you're talking about, Teresa. I think I do. I think you killed your first husband by sabotaging his car, and then you killed his mother by making it look like a heart attack. 2 deaths, both resulting in insurance payouts, both eliminating people who stood between you and the money you wanted. Even if that were true, you'll never be able to prove it. Maybe not. But Eduardo will be able to prove that you tried to kill me tonight, and once the police start investigating your background, they'll probably discover the truth about your other victims. Eduardo will never believe that I tried to kill you. He will when he hears the recording I made of your confession. He'll know that his loving wife is actually a murderer who was planning to steal his inheritance and probably kill him eventually too. Leticia was getting more agitated, and I could see that she was starting to panic. Her original plan had been neat and clean, but now she was facing the possibility of exposure and prosecution for multiple murders. Shut up, Teresa. Just shut up and accept what's going to happen. What's going to happen is that Eduardo is going to walk through that door any minute now, expecting to find his mother safe and his wife helping to take care of her. Instead, he's going to discover that his wife is a killer. Eduardo isn't coming here tonight. Yes, he is. I always call him when I get home from being out late, and when I don't call, he comes to check on me. It's a routine we've had for months. Leticia looked at her watch, and I could see that she was calculating how much time she had before Eduardo arrived. How long before he gets here? Any minute now. That's when we heard the sound of footsteps in the hallway outside my apartment. Teresa, are you home? Your car is in the parking lot, but you didn't call me. It was Eduardo's voice, coming from the other side of my front door. Leticia and I looked at each other, both understanding that the situation had just become much more complicated. Eduardo was about to walk in on a scene that would require explanation, his wife holding a knife while threatening his mother. What are you going to tell him? I whispered. I'm going to tell him that I found you being attacked by a burglar, and that I scared the burglar away, but not before he hurt you. And the knife? I took it away from the burglar before he could use it on you. Leticia was still improvising, still trying to find a way to commit murder and get away with it. But her plan was falling apart, and we both knew it. Mom? Eduardo called again, and I heard him trying to open the door with his key. Leticia grabbed my arm and pressed the knife against my throat. If you say anything to Eduardo except exactly what I tell you to say, I'll kill both of you, she whispered. I nodded, but I had no intention of following Leticia's instructions. Eduardo was my son, and I wasn't going to let his wife hurt him the way she had hurt me and her previous victims. Eduardo opened the door and came into the apartment. Mom, why didn't you call me? I was worried when... He stopped mid-sentence when he saw Leticia holding a knife to my throat. Leticia, what's going on? Eduardo, thank God you're here, Leticia said, immediately switching to her fake panicked voice. I came to check on your mother and found a man attacking her. I managed to get the knife away from him, but he ran when he heard you coming up the stairs. Eduardo looked confused and concerned. Are you hurt, Mom? Eduardo, don't believe her, I said quickly. She's lying. She's the one who was trying to kill me. What? Mom, what are you talking about? I recorded her confession. Eduardo, she's been planning to murder me for months so she can steal my life insurance money. Eduardo's reaction to this information would determine whether Leticia's plan succeeded or failed. Eduardo looked back and forth between his wife and his mother, clearly not understanding what was happening or who to believe. Leticia, why are you holding a knife? 'Cause your mother is having some kind of breakdown. Eduardo, she's been saying crazy things about me. trying hurt her, and I was afraid she might hurt herself. That's not true, I said. Eduardo, look at my phone. I recorded her confession. She admitted to planning my murder, and she admitted to killing her previous husband and his mother. Eduardo, your mother has been under a lot of stress today, Leticia said. She spent 14 hours at the hospital with Mrs. Rodriguez, and I think the trauma has caused her to have some kind of psychotic episode. Eduardo, your wife put poison in food that she expected me to eat when I got home. I said, the food is right there on the kitchen table. If you have it tested, you'll find drugs that would have killed me within 30 minutes. Eduardo looked at the plate of food, then back at Leticia. Leticia, is that true? Of course it's not true. Eduardo, I made that food this afternoon as a surprise for your mother. It's just rice and chicken. Then you won't mind if we call the police and have the food tested. I said, Mom, I think you should sit down and try to calm down, Eduardo said. You've been through a lot today. I realized that Eduardo was inclined to believe his wife rather than his mother, which was exactly what Leticia had been counting on. She had spent months positioning herself as my caring, devoted daughter-in-law, while I was just an aging woman who might be suffering from stress-induced paranoia. Eduardo, please just listen to the recording on my phone, I begged. Eduardo, don't enable your mother's delusions, Leticia said. She needs professional help, not indulgence. But then something happened that changed Eduardo's perspective completely. My phone was still in my hand, and the recording app was still running. Without saying anything else, I simply played the audio I had captured of Leticia's conversation with her accomplice. Eduardo's voice. How long have you been planning this? Leticia's voice. About 6 months. Ever since I found out about the life insurance policy. Eduardo's voice. The one Eduardo doesn't know about. Leticia's voice. Right, Teresa took out a policy years ago, naming Eduardo as the beneficiary, but she never told him about it. When she dies, he'll inherit $500,000, and he has no idea it's coming. Eduardo's face went white as he heard his wife's voice, clearly confessing to planning murder. He looked at Leticia with shock and horror. Leticia, what is this? Eduardo, that's not real. Your mother somehow faked that recording to make it sound like my voice. But the recording continued. I put the drug in the food about an hour ago. Once she eats it, she'll start feeling chest pains within 30 minutes. I'll call 911 and tell them she's having a heart attack. She'll probably die before the ambulance gets here. But even if she makes it to the hospital, the drug will be out of her system by the time they run any tests. Eduardo was staring at his wife with growing revulsion and disbelief. Leticia, how could you do this? Eduardo, I can explain. Explain what? Explain how you were planning to murder my mother for insurance money? It's not what it sounds like. It sounds like you're a killer, Leticia. It sounds like you married me so you could have access to my family's money. Leticia was still holding the knife, but Eduardo was now between her and the door, and he was much larger and stronger than either of us. Eduardo, you don't understand the whole situation, Leticia said, her voice becoming desperate. Then explain it to me. Your mother is a burden on our marriage. She takes up too much of your time and attention, and she's preventing us from building our own life together. So you decided to kill her. I decided to solve a problem that was destroying our relationship. Eduardo's response showed me that I had raised a good man. Leticia, my mother isn't a problem to be solved. She's my family. She raised me, she sacrificed for me, and she loves me unconditionally. If you can't understand that, then you don't understand anything about love or family. Eduardo, you're being emotional. You need to think about this logically. Logically? Leticia, you were planning to murder an innocent woman for money. There's nothing logical about that. That's pure evil. Eduardo turned to me with tears in his eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have seen what kind of person she really was. It's not your fault, Maneo. She fooled both of us. Eduardo, if you turn me into the police, you'll lose everything, Leticia said, making one last desperate attempt to save herself. Your marriage, your reputation, your financial stability. Is protecting your mother worth destroying your own life? Yes, Eduardo said without hesitation. Protecting my mother is worth everything. Eduardo pulled out his phone and called 911. I need to report an attempted murder. My wife tried to poison my mother and is currently threatening her with a knife. Leticia realized that her plan had completely failed. and that she was about to be arrested for attempted murder. In a final act of desperation, she lunged toward me with the knife. But Eduardo caught her arm and wrestled the weapon away from her. "It's over, Leticia. It's all over." The police arrived 8 minutes later. When the officers entered my apartment, they found Eduardo restraining Leticia while I sat at my kitchen table playing the recorded confession for a 911 operator over the phone. The evidence against Leticia was overwhelming and undeniable. The police immediately arrested Leticia for attempted murder, conspiracy to commit murder, and possession of controlled substances with intent to distribute. They also confiscated the poisoned food from my kitchen table and the vial of drugs from my refrigerator. Within hours, detectives had traced Leticia's accomplice through her phone records and arrested him as well. He confessed to his role in the murder plot and provided additional evidence about Leticia's previous crimes. The investigation that followed revealed that Leticia was indeed responsible for the deaths of her first husband and his mother. Just as I had suspected, she had been operating as a serial killer for over 5 years, targeting elderly family members who had access to life insurance money. Eduardo was devastated to learn that his wife was a murderer, but he was also relieved that I had survived her attack and that her crimes had been exposed before she could hurt anyone else. The poison that Leticia had put in my food turned out to be a powerful cardiac stimulant that would cause a fatal heart attack within 30 minutes of consumption. If I had eaten the food as she expected, I would have died before medical help could arrive, and my death would have been attributed to natural causes.